So this month, as you all know, and you've seen the brochure, it's all about the expansion capsule. And it's really about creating the conditions in consciousness that can bring about an expansion of our life conditions, especially coming from a different inner experience. A higher consciousness is a consciousness that it's resonating with truth. A low consciousness is a consciousness that is still trapped in illusion. And this month we're moving together to see how it comes about in each one of us in whatever process we might be going through, whatever we are ready for and that we're willing to receive. The foundation of this work, as you might have seen last week, and if you weren't here last week, please, I strongly recommend you listen to the talk. I sort of like created the foundation because this is just really coming from my own personal experience about anything that I'm building upon in my life has to come from the awareness that I'm fully loved and that I'm love itself and that there's only love, right? So a solid foundation of understanding truth as that awareness of being loved will really create the best circumstances for you and I to generate more good into our life experience. We'd like to start with a question, a rhetoric question, so you have to all answer. But if there would be a way to sustain high levels of good into your experience, will it be worth exploring that? And I'm sure you would say that, yes. Then the answer, or the other question is, what would it take spiritually for that? And if you've been in unity for a while, or not necessarily, but you have been working your own spirituality, you might say, well, it's really about shifting and changing your mind, changing your lives, right? And it's really the third unity principle that somehow says that we co-create with our consciousness. In the Bible, we're also in the New Testament are reminded that be renewed by the transformation of your mind. And however, today I'm here, I meant to challenge that perspective for a while and say it might not be everything. Mind management is excellent, and I think unity is the best in giving us tools to manage our thinking and to see how that thinking can resonate more and more with spiritual truth. But if the management of the mind is not everything, the question is, what are we missing? And like I said, unity has been amazing in how, at least I'm speaking for myself, how it has really helped me to understand that I'm always creating my own perception of life, right? And that things will be experienced according to that perception. And many of us have come with different, throughout our times, our life experience, we might have had, for moments, have a conditioning that says, oh, I might not be as worthy. We have a condition of worthiness. And then unity tells you, hey, you are divine, you are good, God is in you, you are an expression of God. If we have been dealing with a condition that has really been resonating with scarcity, unity tells us, you know what? The essence of life is abundance itself. If we've been with a condition of illness having all the power over us, unity says, no, your nature is of wholeness, complete. You are more than what your consciousness at some moment is able to tell you. And the truth of the matter is that we all function under some certain conditioning. And most of that conditioning has been created the first 7 years of our lives. That's what Aristotle used to say, give me a child until he's 7 and I will show you the man. So in that sense, as I've been aging and gaining age, I have realized the blessing it has been for me to have been exposed to this philosophy of unity philosophy. I went to the first church, Unity Church experience when I was 13, 14 years old. And I remember really falling in love without really knowing. Initially, having been brought up Catholic and so used to seeing images and a cross and not seeing any of that. However, actually listening to something that was enticing and got me engaged. And I would say that that exposure to unity has really allowed me to go through life challenges in a way that have gotten the best of them and spare me. Now I see how it has really spared me from other complications because of the tools that I received. And for instance, like any of us, I'm sure if you're on this planet, you have had difficulty or hardship, right? In my case, well, I was given the amazing challenge at 22 years old to run a company that my father had created under really difficult conditions. While my father, who had been like the go-getter, he went on a depression, and I had to overnight take over a company that had been operating for 27 years. And I remember at the time how my spiritual practice, I had already been meditating. I had learned to meditate while in college, really helped me out to cope with that type of challenges. Then fast forward, I was diagnosed with a really almost terminal type of cancer, and this is what brought me to North Carolina. And I went to Duke and got into all the treatment, but while I was doing that, I was really working with the principles for healing. Fast forward, like some of us, I had to go through a separation after 21 years with my beloved husband, but Unity gave me the tools so that we did it in such a harmonious way that my children have hardly seen the impact of a separation like that. My son, who was here last week, had some major developmental issues when growing up. And again, we were led to the Right and Perfect therapist, and he overcame his difficulty and developed to be a really amazing human being. And I would say that at some point, I was like, oh my God, I got this. It's like I'm not a victim. Life is not happening to me, it's by me. However, I must say that as life has gone on, I realized that there might not necessarily, you can't control everything through the mind. There are other elements, and that's really what I wanted to talk to you about. And I really believe that in this process of evolution, we have to understand that spirit wants so much more than we succeed in the world, or thrive in the world, or get our needs met, whatever they may be. I am convinced that spirit is constantly challenging us, our egoic based illusion of control and order. And I really believe that it is the aim of spirit in our lives to bring a lot of opportunities so that we really expand spiritually beyond getting our needs met. So in other words, today, the invitation is, how can I explore areas beyond my positively trained mind, right? And that's why, and what is it, years ago, being in sales and in business and studying Unity to become a Unity leader, I remember as I would prepare for a talk, I would say, what do you want to sell them today? Like, okay, you can say a lot, but there's something you want to sell, something you want them to buy. So what I would like to sell to you, and if I had a PowerPoint presentation, you will see a for sale sign. So what I would love to sell to you today is that in bridging the mind and the heart, it should be the aim of your spiritual life. And as I continue, Debbie, I just realized something. Remember what I wanted to bring for Victoria's office? Can you get it? Yes. Okay, now you're going to see. So that's why I call my talk today, I Am Connected, All is Available. And it's about how can I be in constant connection beyond the mind, connection, checking in, where am I standing? Am I coming from the heart and I'm hearing that subtle voice, or am I hearing the voice of programming? And it's really a constant invitation to listen from the heart, knowing that that heart is the highest form, is the guru, is the compass, it's always right. It's the I am presence, it's the Christ presence. And that's why it is believed that the greatest distance, not yet, no. The greatest distance in the world, you've probably heard it, is 14 inches, right? From your brain to the heart. But some of us, we really experience it much more longer. We act like what? Like giraffes. I have family in Spain, and one of my cousins was telling me, oh, this Italian author who says that the giraffes are so distant from head to heart that Stephanie Benny, the giraffe has the heart so distant from the head that she fell in love yesterday and still doesn't know it. And I would say that so many times we go from there, it just feels that we're acting from the brain, from the programming, and the more we do that and it becomes a way of life, I think ultimately we're going to get lost and disconnected and therefore limited in what we would be able to experience in life. So I have a quote from me. This is my own quote. It says, being in harmony with the guidance of the heart is being in harmony with all of life, with our divine plan, and with the reason we are created and took a body. Okay? So if you're in harmony with your heart, you're in harmony with life and what your divine plan is. And the beautiful thing is that I am convinced that divine plan is communicated through the heart space, and it really shows you the path. And not only will show you the path, but I relate it to what Unity teaches. It's going to get the flow of good to keep continuing, right? You probably heard of Greg Braden. He talks about this Koji Indian tribe in Colombia, that they have a part of their culture is that when kids are in their first 3-4 years of life, they get them into dark spaces for long periods of time, which might sound like abusive or somehow, but the whole reasoning is that they want these children to start going within before the programming takes over. So they listen more, they connect more, and there's so many, we've heard about heart math. Heart math, does it teach us, right? To be heart-centered, to practice qualities of the heart, and biologically, when you do that a lot, centering the heart and honoring qualities of love and compassion and acceptance brings the best signal to the brain, then the brain sends out signals to the body, bringing a lot of wellness, And in that flow, this is where divine ideas and intuition says, okay, now we have a clean space here, let me go for it. However, in that process, we need to be mindful because there's someone who's not necessarily going to like that too much. And that is called what? Mr. Ego. And the ego says, what? Right? If we're getting a signal that this is mine to do, but then the ego says, well, there's really, you don't have experience of what happened to you when you tried that last time. Or what if it doesn't happen this way? Because the ego needs to feel in control, right? And when we are in this place that the heart says this and the ego says ha, and we have not integrated both, what do we experience? We experience discomfort, right? And restlessness. And that's not a very good place to be. But it's part of our journey. And so the main idea I'm trying to bring across is that the more connection beyond the mind space and have a practice of doing that, the more good will flow forth. And I even have some scripture from Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Not on the ego, on the conditioned mind. In all ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. So what do we use the ego for? We use the ego for or the mind to say, okay, I'm going to make the decisions, I'm going to sit and meditate, I'm going to discipline my life. That's where the ego comes really handy. But we need to know that it's really going to happen beyond that. So I always try to bring stories. I must have you tell them I'm a storyteller. And if I'm planning on mentioning Osvaldo, and if I have time, I will mention another good story that really shows the power of listening to that intuition and not to what the conditioned mind might say. But something I wanted to make reference, and I know Osvaldo was going to show up, and when I told him I'm going to say something about you, oh, I'm not going. So Osvaldo, if you're watching me, there you go. As you know, he's part of your community, and we started working together in 2019. And as of today, we have created this bilingual online ministry, and we're really engaged. Things are happening, really happy with how things are unfolding. But the more I have spent time in knowing Osvaldo, the more I realize that he's really the poster child of what I'm saying. Because especially over the last few years, he does not make mental decisions. And the first one that I'm like, maybe he's shared with you, but when he moved from Ecuador 4 or 5 years, no, probably 5 or 6 years ago, he found great opportunities in Florida, in Tallahassee, and they were offering there everything so that he may stay and create his new life there. And the heart said, no, it's North Carolina. It's Chapel Hill. And he followed that, right? With all the temptations of saying, there's security in what they were offering. However, the heart was saying someplace else. Fast forward, you guys were living in an apartment, and one day he wakes up and says, it's time for a house. And of course, a house might cost more, but he's saying, no, it's going to just flow. And he was led to the right and perfect house that we were there last week at the right and perfect price. And it's like, if you let the mind go only, it says, like, what are the chances of getting a house like affordable at Chapel Hill? But there's other rules that are playing. And the third example that I bring from his own experience is how he really was moved to do Unity work in Spanish. And he learns about me, and he just walks into my office one day and says, I'm here to support you. I had just met the guy. I say, okay, who are you? I remember your mother was there too, and I said, oh, you have a beautiful wife. And this is where it all started, but this is all heart-led, right? And, the invitation is how we become experts at it. And like the title today says, I am connected, all is available, right? And it's a constant choice, and it's like asking yourself, where am I coming from? And the reason can be useful, and the five senses, but I'm saying you have to start learning more and more, and I'm sure being in this community, you probably have a lot of stories that relate to this, how you like pay attention to that inner voice and things were different. I have another story from my business times. As you know, well, I had to take over the family business when I was 22, 23 years old. And I worked there 23 years, and the first few years were really, it was always a challenge. But the first few years without experience, being so young and the company being in some critical condition was really a big, big challenge. This is probably like in the 1996, 95, 96. I get every fall period, I would we were wholesalers, okay? You need to know that we were wholesalers in the island of Puerto Rico, so we would buy from vendors in the US and distribute in all the island, in the island and the Caribbean. And for a period of time, it was like 3 or 4 years, during the fall period, I would pick items that I could discount and get rid of, it would liquidate. And for 3 years in a row, I had this person come. She was the secretary of the president of the Senate of the government of Puerto Rico. I have a Puerto Rican here, so she knows what I'm talking about. And she would come and buy stuff to give away to children, of low income. And it became like, okay, somebody that I know will take a lot of this merchandise, and it was a great deal for them, because something that, let's say, would retail at 40, we would normally sell at 20, and now we would sell at $6. So imagine buying something for $6 that will not, has a $40 retail value. So you need to know that part of the story first. The other part of the story is that for years I wanted to be a teacher, a school teacher. That was my dream. I wanted to study education, and I went into business and forgot about the dream, but it was a calling in me. And because I could not teach, one day I said, okay, maybe I can collaborate with the public school next to our business. And the government at the time created a program, Adopt a School, so I adopted this elementary school that had, I remember, 560 kids, and in a low-income area, and I was really rewarded. I worked with the council there. The conditions were really harsh, and for a long time, they didn't have a director, a principal. We managed to get the principal, and then she didn't have a secretary, and the principal was going crazy. So you need to know these two things in order to make sense what happened next. So this particular year, I talked to the lady from the Senate, and she says, okay, yeah, just make, assemble some goods that will end up being like $8,000. That's what our original budget will be. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And I had put it away, we had packed it and everything. And she called me later in the week and said, I'm on my way to pick up the merchandise, but you know what? I just learned that we don't have as much budget this year, so I just have $2,000. And I went, oh, so just give me $2,000 worth of merchandise. And I hung up and I went, oh my God, no. And the voice said, give it away. And the mentor voice, what? I'm losing thousands of dollars here. What do you mean? No way. And the voice was, for children. You have a lot? No. And I was back and forth, the mind and the heart, the mind and the heart. So I had not made the decision. The lady shows up. I walk out to the warehouse. There she comes with her van. And when I looked at her, I said, you know what? Go ahead and take everything. It was like an impulse. And the lady went, oh my God, she started to cry because it was a lot of merchandise that I was giving for free. Then my business mind kicks in and goes, you have to get something out of this. So I said, but you know what? The only thing is I would like for Mr. Charlie Rodriguez, the president at the time, to help me get a secretary for the school. I adopted a public school nearby, and it's been months without a secretary. I could use some help there. So, oh, certainly. Let's wait for the Christmas period to be over, and you'll get a call. Okay? I felt good. What happened? Beginning of the year starts, and we get an auditor from Hacienda. You know what Hacienda is? The Puerto Rican IRS. And he comes in, he says, we're going to do an audit here, and they audited everything that had to do with what we were exporting. And when he checked that, he audited that, he says, you know what, you're doing it wrong, and we're going to fine you for $100,000. And we're going back. And I remember going like, well, that's it, we're going to close the company. So I called my external auditor, and I said, hey, Mr. Diaberne, I remember, you one guy who used to play softball with my dad. I said, we got an auditor from Hacienda here who wants to fine us for $100,000, and it's going to go back. What do we do? You need to give me a solution. And you know what the auditor tells me? I don't know what to say, Anna. You have to pay it. I said, pay it? We don't mess around. We do things by the law. I do things correctly. I'm going to get fined for $100,000? I'm sorry. Can you tell that I didn't do more business with that guy? And I'm like, oh my, I was really like in a crisis. And then the secretary calls me up. Says, Mr. Rodriguez is ready to see you, and he's going to help you get the secretary for your school. I go, oh, great. I remember telling my father, it was a Wednesday. My father at the time was a golf player, and he was so, in many ways, he had semi-retired, and he says, no, I'm off. You go by yourself. I'm going to go golfing. I remember going, Papi. I said, okay, I guess I need to go. Well, we show up in this fancy office in the legislature of Puerto Rico, and I'm thinking, you know what? He has to help us. He might get somebody in the IRS at a higher, and they can review the case. So we went there, we talked about the secretary. He called the Secretary of Education, and they got the secretary for the school, and then called the subsecretary for the Hacienda. And they said, okay, another committee is going to revise the case. So what happened? They did it. They fined us for $15,000 because of some technicality, and then they said, but you're good to go. It's not going to be more than that. Who was responsible for that? But the heart. Right? The heart knew. It's like spirit knows everything. Like you were saying, there's no time and space. And I'm so glad that I made the decision, because it's not that I was bribing them, but it really, the fact that I had given more really put them in a space of how can we help back, right? So essentially, my message today is about being aware of this and more practicing and letting the heart be leading your decision making. I have another quote from me. Being in the heart is a state of spiritual authenticity where we open the doors for intuition to guide us in our decision making, but most of all, to guide our spiritual evolution. Let's take that in, and we bless this beautiful child here and the mother. Come into our heart space. Join me there, here, now. And take these words in. Being in the heart is the state of spiritual authenticity where we open the doors for intuition to guide us and guide our decision making, but most of all, to guide our spiritual evolution. So I'm going to ask you to bring these two words in your mind's eye: heart, spirit, connection, guided decision making, spiritual evolution. It's all coming from within. Do you feel like it? Bring either your right or left hand to the center of your heart. And by doing that, it's almost as if you are making reverence. Reverence to that inner dimension, the heart, the I am, the Christ, that knows, that wants to guide you, that loves you. So the takeaways for today are: thoughts do create, and we must place thoughts of truth to create good. But there's more. Essentially, let's not be a giraffe with a great positive mind, but distance from the heart. Rigid, reduce that neck, for in honoring that and acting of that will bring you into an expansion. Let's feel that expansion happening right here and right now in each one of us, in the people that we love, for this community. We know that as we are loyal to that voice and that dimension, only good, only light, only blessings will flow forth. For this recognition, we say, thank you, God, and so it is. Amen. Amen. Namaste. Thank you.